Greetings, family and friends, and anyone out there listening. I am Pastor Erika, and I just want to encourage you from Isaiah 41:10. It says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." From the years 2004 to 2006, Ford Motor Company had a slogan that said, "Built for the road ahead." And behind this slogan was the idea that a Ford is equipped to handle any and every obstacle that may get in its way. Whether it be a small bump in the road or a pothole, whether it be a steep hill or a fierce storm, it doesn't matter because a Ford is built for the road ahead. I just want to encourage you today that no matter what obstacle may come your way, God has equipped you to handle any and everything because you are built for the road ahead. In Isaiah 41:10, God's people, they were in a place of captivity. They were uncomfortable. And although they knew that one day they would be restored, they needed a little encouragement. And sometimes that's what we need. We know that things are going to get better, but sometimes we need to be encouraged to keep on living, to keep on moving forward, to keep on doing those things that God has called us to do. So let me encourage you today. It's time for you to move forward, to step out on faith. It may even be time for you to make some changes. But as you do that, I want you to know that whatever may come your way, you are built for the road ahead. Why are you built for the road ahead? One, because you have God's presence with you. About a month ago, I was in a conference for my job in downtown Atlanta. And when I pulled up to the front of the hotel, I realized it was the exact same hotel that my parents and I stayed in 20 years ago when I first came to Atlanta. I was a senior in high school, and I was thinking about coming to Clark Atlanta University. I was young, I was naive, I wasn't even really sure of the path that I was going to take. But one thing I did know was that God was with me. And so as I began to sit there in the car and reflect, I thought about how I am in that exact same place 20 years later. I know that it's time to move forward. I know that it's time for me to make some changes. And I don't know about you, but for me, these last couple of years have been a roller coaster. I've had some ups and I've had some downs. And you know, you might know the call on your life, and you might be trying to find where you belong. And that can be spiritually, mentally, and emotionally frustrating. And I've been asking God, what next? What is my next move? God, what is it that you would have me to do? And as I sat there in that exact hotel that I was in 20 years prior, God reminded me the same way that I was with you 20 years ago when you were moving here, I am with thee now. And I just want to encourage you to know that God is with you. Don't be afraid because you're in good company. Fear paralyzes you. Fear enables you to move forward, and fear must be removed. You've got the presence of God, and that's all you need. So there's no need to be afraid. I understand why David said, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me." So although you may be unsure of what is ahead, you can know and be confident to know that God is with you. I begin to think about how a police officer, when it's in a bad situation and it can't handle the situation on its own, he or she may call for backup. God wants me to let you know today that you don't have to call for backup when things get a little rough, because God is already with you. Your backup is already there. You're built for the road ahead because you have God's presence with you. The next thing that you have is God's partnership. He says, don't be discouraged. Don't be dismayed, because I am your God. I belong to you and you belong to me. And a partner is someone that shares the weight or the responsibility. And I want you to embrace God as your partner on this journey. Matthew 11:28 says, "Come unto me, all of you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. He says, take my yoke upon you. And then he says some other things, but at the end he says, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And what Jesus is saying to you is that I want to help carry the load. The old folks used to say, he's a burden bearer and a heavy load sharer. God wants to be your partner today. Some people, when you hear their name, you don't hear their name without their partner's name being attached to it. And I want you to know that God wants to be a partner with you. He wants you to embrace your partnership and know that you and him are a famous pair. You don't hear Amos without Andy. You don't hear Laverne without Shirley. You don't hear Cheech without Chong. You don't hear Dolce without Gabbana. You don't hear Hall without Oates. You don't hear Starsky without Hutch. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that when you hear Erika's name, you ought to hear God's name attached to it. When you hear David's name, you ought to hear God's name attached to it. When you hear Sally's name, you ought to hear God's name attached to it. Insert your name here. When you hear your name, you ought to hear God's name attached to it. I'm so glad that not only do I have his presence, but I have a partnership with God. And finally, I want you to know that he says, I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Not only do you have his presence and his partnership, but you have a promise from the Lord. He doesn't say, I might strengthen you. He doesn't say, I can strengthen you, but he says, I will strengthen you. He doesn't say, I might help you. He doesn't say, I should help you, but he says, I will help you. He doesn't say, I can uphold you, but he says, I will uphold you. I begin to think about how God, he is not a man that he can lie. And so if he said it, that means he has to fulfill it. You have God's promise to support you. When you're weak, God says, I'll strengthen you. In 2 Corinthians 12:9, he says, my grace is sufficient for you. My strength shall be made perfect in your weakness. When you feel like you're doing it all alone, God says, I'll help you. In Psalm 46, he says that I am your refuge and your strength, a very present help in the time of trouble. When you feel like it's too much and you might even fall, God says that he is able to keep us from falling. And so I want you to know today that God has given you a glimpse of where you're going. You may not be sure how you're going to get there. You might be at a crossroad. You might be trying to decide on what move you need to make next. But I want to encourage you today that no matter what turn you take, that you are built for the road ahead. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all of your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. And on this path called life, God's presence is with you. You have a partner in God, and he promises to strengthen you, to help you, and to uphold you with his righteous right hand. So what am I saying? I'm saying that when you begin to move forward and when you step out, no matter what obstacle comes your way, you are equipped to handle it because you are built for the road ahead. God bless you. I love you, and be encouraged.